screen.
Can you?
Perfect. Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so welcome everybody to our seminar series today and we have a great pleasure to introduce my old friend, Professor Luciana Miron from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil, as well as Andriele and Josana, who have been working with Luciana for a number of years now. Andriele was both Andriele and Josana have been here in the UK doing parts of their research as well. So welcome everybody to the seminar series today. So the theme of the talk today is going to be around studies on quality of urban life and I would like to once more welcome Luciana, Andriele, and Josana here today, that they're giving their time to actually share their research experience and knowledge with us. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, Luciana, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Patricia, for the introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I'm missing Huddersfield because I remember that in 2019 was my last trip, and I need to provide another visitors to Huddersfield.
Of course, we need to organize something. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I and my supervised researchers will present to you some of our experiences with research on quality of urban life. It's not passing. Okay, here. This presentation is organized in 4 parts. Some general information about our country, Brazil, our university, the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, and our program, the PROPUR. And as well, some information about my curriculum, my background on value concept is related to the land construction group, and some initial studies on quality of life. After that, the part 2 is related to doctoral and postdoctoral research developed by Josana with my supervision, and the part 4 is Andriele Panosso's ongoing doctoral research. And as I said, I also like to comment that this presentation is a good opportunity to remember how my background from lean construction and the concept of value, together with my postdoctoral activities at Huddersfield, that initially was related to target value design, influenced the research on quality of urban life, which we are currently developing. First of all, it's good to have an idea of the location of our countries and how far we are. The last time that I traveled was about 24 hours of travel on 3 flights. And about Brazil, Brazil is a very big country with different landscapes, geography, cultures, foods, climates. Perhaps you are more familiar with images of the beach, like this example in Alagoas in Northeast Brazil, or even Rio de Janeiro. But Brazil has regions and states without beaches, such as the capital of Brazil, which is Brasilia, in the state of Goiás, here, or the swampy landscapes from the state of Mato Grosso do Sul that I recently visited on vacation. Brazil is the 5th largest country in the world. The total area of Brazil is approximately 8.5 million square kilometers. If we compare, the area of the United Kingdom is smaller than the area of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is where I'm talking about. Brazil is the 35 times larger in area than the United Kingdom. The population of Brazil is 3 times larger than the United Kingdom. On the other hand, the United Kingdom has almost double the gross domestic product of Brazil. Furthermore, Brazil housing shortage is around 6 million homes, which is make the social housing area and research field so important for us. Talking about our university, the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul was created in the 30s and is located in Rio Grande do Sul state, the extreme south, this area in red here, the last one, the extreme south of Brazil. Porto Alegre, that is here, is the capital, where our university is located. Our university has about 2,700 academics, 94% of them with PhD, 94 undergraduate students, courses, and about 32,000 students, 83 master degrees with about 6,000 students, and 71 PhD courses with around 6,000 students. And it's important to highlight that these students in our public universities do not pay fees for these courses. In the context of the Brazil, we are currently, the university is the third best in the country. The two previous, the first and second, are state universities in the state of São Paulo. In our program, the postgraduate program in urban and regional planning was created in the 70s. Actually, we have 16 academics with PhD, about 45 master students, and 14 starting in 2004, and about 40 doctoral students, with 12 starting in this year. Our main research areas are city culture and politics, space production, planning and management, that is my group of work, and urban and environmental systems. Telling you a little bit more about my curriculum, I was graduating in late 90s in architecture and urbanism in the same university. In 2002, I finished my master's degree in civil engineering. In 2008, I finished my doctorate in civil engineering in the same university. In 2006, I started as assistant professor at the Faculty of Architecture in the Department of Architecture. And in 2011, I started as associate professor at our program, Propur. And in 2014 to 2015, I carried out these postdoctoral studies at the University of Huddersfield. In that time, Lauri Koskela was my supervisor. One of the publications resulting from this postdoctoral period was the chapter Understanding Value Generation in Urban Regeneration Projects. I wrote this chapter with my advisor in Masters and PhD, Carlos Formoso, and the editor, Peter Brandon, was the advisor of my advisor, or the advisor of Carlos Formoso. And this experience for me was interesting because this whole legacy and connection between these academics. At that time, Peter Brandon called me academic granddaughter. These experiences provide for me opportunities to understand better this importance to working groups and understand the origins of our work. Another publication resulting from my postdoctorate was the book chapter, Value Generation, Bringing the Customer into Perspective. In this paper, I was able to deepen learning and insights into the concept of value, which I had studied until then. This book was the commemoration of 25 years in the research in the International Group for Lean Construction. Talking a little bit more about this conceptual basis related to value generation, it's from the Lean Construction International Group and mainly based on the TFV theory proposed by Laurie Koskela in 2000. And in this theory, he proposed that transformation, flow, and value, or value generation, need to be balanced to improve the construction in the built environment. And from my master's degrees to my doctorate and postdoctorate, I developed studies focused in this concept of value. Another area of knowledge that brought me important insights was marketing, which works with the concept of perceived value and the hierarchy of clients' perceived value. This perceived value in this way is the origin is for related to pricing the products, and it's a result between the comparison between benefits and sacrifices perceived by the customers, clients, or users, as we can say, in the moment of the purchasing or using a product. In our studies, we apply these concepts to understand the generation of value in complex products, such as social housing and urban projects. The previously mentioned complex urban regeneration project that resulted in a book chapter was the City Entrance Integrated Program. This program started in 2002 in Porto Alegre, south of Brazil, was funded by Brazilian government, Inter-American Development Bank, and FONPLAT. This program was located in a very good area near the city center, the harbor, the airport, and this program was integrated by 5 projects. Housing or social housing, social work project that includes work and income generation and community participation, the environmental recovery, and the urban restructure that was related to road system upgrading, and how this program was supported by planning. In this area, at that time, was identified 20 informal settlements with around 4,000 families living in that condition. And since measuring perceived value is very difficult, several data collection and cross-analysis are carried out to try to understand the value generated in a qualitative assessment. Post-occupancy evaluations are carried out in new homes to try to measure the users or dwellers' perceived value. Interviews are carried out with technicians and decision makers involved in development of the program. And a lot of document analysis was conducted as well. This social housing was interesting for us because it was connected to urban regeneration and had multiple objectives like provide housing for people without housing, create jobs and income, and improve environment that is related to sustainability. In 2 years, 5 housing projects were evaluated. In this way, it was possible to identify what the population perceived as positive and negative in the attributes of social housing. Here you can see in the perception of the dwellers or users, in green, the positive attributes, and in red, the negative attributes. The attributes evaluated are in the central here in the 5 housing projects. And this was measured with best features, satisfaction, reasons to stay, reasons to leave, dissatisfaction, and worst features. And we can perceive, for example, in all of them, urban services is a very positive attribute in the perception of the users or dwellers. From this whole data collection with questionnaires to the dwellers, I can provide some understanding based on this preview model that I showed to you related to marketing. Here, so we can see the value generation of this city entrance integrated program and the main sacrifices identified by the decision makers that was interviewed in this research. The perceived sacrifices are investment, time, and work. The attributes evaluated are related to housing project with allotment in collective areas, housing unit, and urban infrastructure services, and social work that includes work and income generation and community development. The consequences or scales of evaluation are satisfaction and retention. Retention is permanence of the families in the new houses. And in the perception of these decision makers, one of the characteristics that indicates the value generation was the social inclusion of this vulnerable population. And the goal that here we can see the previous connection with quality of life is improve the quality of living of this population. Comparing this perception or this value hierarchy with the dwellers, we perceive here that there's something missing. For example, here we don't have the social work and this goal, this perception related to the improvement of quality of life. At that time, we don't identify why these missing perceptions, but after that, we can identify that the questionnaire instrument was not sensitive enough to identify these other perceptions. And what is more present for the dwellers was the attributes, concrete attributes, like housing project. And for this, from the dwellers' point of view, urban infrastructure was the attribute that most enable social inclusion, and so on, and from this, and consequently, the value generation. The permanence of, or the construct of permanence, that is retention, help us to understand the link and the attributes performance and the project goals, comparing the views of the dwellers and the technicians or decision makers. After that, a doctoral student, David Monteiro, carried out further evaluations in this program of housing projects. With three housing projects, these three in red here was evaluated in 2015. With this experience, we can improve our evaluation related to value perception, and we generated this hierarchical value map that was a result of the laddering technique. The laddering technique uses open questions to deep understanding of the importance of the attributes to the users. And we identify, for example, the quality use of urban equipment is related to accessibility to this urban equipment, related to health conditions that could provide sociability, familiarity, respect, happiness, realization, urban vitality, and social recognition. And comparing by the interviews and the questionnaires here, we have a convergence between the perceptions of the technicians or responsible for making decisions during the development of the project and the users or dwellers. On the other hand, the characteristics perceived by the dwellers like negative was constructive and finishes problems related to quality of these finishes and the lack of environmental comfort. And here we can compare this divergence between the perceptions of the technicians and the users or dwellers. Here we can see as well this value hierarchy deployed in attribute, concrete attribute, abstract attribute, functional consequences, psychological, psychosocial consequences, instrumental values, and terminal values. All these set of results help us to understand better the real improvement of the quality of life for these users. And from this, in the period of the 2004 to 2015, I carried out my postdoctoral activities. In that time was more related to target value design, another tool to try and improve value generation during the design process. And this tool is more related, of course, to establish target values or target costs. But in the same time, I had this contact with Dr. Ioane Del Santi, that was from Center of Urban Design, Architecture and Sustainability. And we start some initial studies to try to propose a method to urban quality assessment, or the urban quality assessment methodology. We established some initial effort to integrate the quantitative indicators, and this was more related to the Dr. Ioane's previous experience with this qualitative evaluation, such as the perceived value that I had more background at that time. We had some contributions with participation in conferences, workshops, and publication of conference paper and a journal paper as well. Important to comment that this concept of urban quality of life is quite complex. And this concept involving multiple disciplines and dimensions that my researchers will detail a little bit more. Three main constructs are necessary to address this concept. Equity in the population's access to urban goods and resources, addressing access to both in terms of its spatial and social aspects. And it's interesting, I was wondering about these different realities that we have For example, if only comparing the reality of our countries, like Brazil and United Kingdom, equity probably is a big challenge for us to understand and really improve. The assessment of environmental quality is based on morphological elements related to urban environment, and the production of elements for the discussion of urban sustainability. And during our research, we identified that the environmental quality is more related to the present, and urban sustainability, in fact, deal with some similarities conditions, but is dedicated to the view for the future. We need, we have the compromise to maintain the environmental quality for the people in the future. And equity is a challenge in both moments, in the present and the future. Urban quality of life must be considered from its objective and subjective dimensions. Objective dimensions are more related to, in our research, are more related to secondary data and indicators and quantitative data. And the subjective dimensions are more related to the perception of the people involved, and of course are more related to primary data collection. As well, is important the balancing these three constructs, equity, environmental quality, and sustainability. An environment susceptible to the promotion of urban quality of life ensure easier of access to goods and services to entire population, environmental quality of the elements available in the urban space, and the minimization of short, medium, and long-term impacts to the environment that is related to sustainability. Now, I don't know if my time, well, I talk a little bit about this thesis that was proposed by David Monteiro. This was a proposal of a method to assessment of urban quality of life in Brazilian neighborhoods. This replicated the experience of Ioane Del Sante in previous research and connected our experience with from perception of the users and technicians, connected this with the calculation of the indicators. Here we can see the three concepts: equity, sustainability, and environmental quality. The urban indicators reviewed and identified as important in this research was common European local sustainability indicators, environmental quality index of residential space, that is was proposed by Socco and replied by Scussel in Brazil and replied by Del Sante in Italy. And from Brazil, we have this Curitiba Synthetic Quality of Life Satisfaction Index, Social Exclusion Inclusion Map of the City of São Paulo, and Belo Horizonte Quality of Life Index. Of course, we use these indicators comparing with the perception of technicians. And after that, we collected information related to perceived value, and we worked this with the laddering technique to make explicit the perceived value hierarchy. The student identified initially 36 urban indicators, and each one of the set of these indicators provide the calculation of macro indicators, and these macro indicators was related to dominion groups, and from this set was calculated the residential space quality indicator. The student, David, selected the city of Porto Alegre because in the master plan of our city is mentioned the necessity to evaluate the quality of urban life. And he identified as important this neighborhood, that is Farrapos neighborhood, and the selection criteria was because this neighborhood is the one with the highest degree of social vulnerability in Porto Alegre. And this social vulnerability was related to lack of infrastructure, schooling, low average income, and problems related to housing. And from the identification of this neighborhood that was inside the area of city entrance integrated program that we studied for more than 10 years, he identified inside the neighborhood what are the blocks with more different characteristics related to infrastructure, typology of housings, and the lack of or no the quality of this social housing. From this, he structured the data collection instrument, the questionnaire. The questionnaire provide data with open questions to the laddering technique, use the retention or permanence scale, use as well the intention of the permanence, and provide the data to the calculation of the indicators for the whole indicator selected for this analysis. He worked with two databases, quantitative databases, and a qualitative database that was related to laddering. Both are informations from the users. With these indicators, he needs to compare each characteristic or each indicator in establishes a weight, a key weight to the calculation of the final indicators of each group. Here, I believe is the most interesting contribution from the study of David, because he put together these two different backgrounds, because he used the laddering, and the laddering indicate what is most important in the perception of the users. At the same time, he collected the qualitative data related to the characteristics of each indicator. So to calculate the indicators, usually in this scale that is from SATI, the key is established by the researchers. And because this is possible, some misunderstanding or some weight that is not correspond effectively with the perception of the users. And David used the results and the importance of perceived value by the laddering technique to establish this weight. This was the main contribution of this research, and in this small piece of the work that result a lot of work and cross-analysis and data collection, the connection between these two backgrounds, from perceived value and from the indicators of quality of life. And in the final visualization of the results, we can see in these colors the most important areas with characteristics, good characteristics, and with areas that need improvements to improve the quality of life of this population. From these experiences, we establish our actual research, that is quality of urban life, challenges for equity in healthy habitats. And the general objective of this research project is to consolidate the existing knowledge about the process of assessing the quality of urban life. And most part of my supervised students are working in different delimitations and different concepts related to the quality of urban life. Part of them try to identify contributions to ABNT norms and regulations that was established to evaluate quality of urban life in Brazilian context. Part of the students, like the Josiane Escoton, that is in Huddersfield now, will be related to population participation and how this could help in this improvement of quality of life. The other students identify the importance of provision of public services by intermunicipal cooperation. Other of them already study urban settlements that can influence the transmission of disease, and on the other hand, how to improve the health with the better conditions of housing and the surroundings. And it is important to analyze this approach that exists in Brazil, that is technical assistance arrangements for improved social housing in urban planning. Part of the studies related to this use as well this concept of social justice. And finally, it's important to say that by improving the quality of urban life indicators, we can provide a better decision support tool for stakeholders in the planning and management of the cities. We can have a better chance to improve the policies and planning. We can have the better way forward to sustainable development. And it is possible to create a dashboard to indicate how urban interventions will collaborate for achieving future scenarios, goals, and challenges. I can pass the presentation now for Josana.
Thank you, Luciana. Thank you for that. We have 20 minutes left, Josana and Andriele, so just so that you know, it will be good to have a couple of minutes for questions as well at the end, if possible.
Yes, okay. I will be very, quick.
Thank you.
So, hello everyone. I am Josana Vez. I am an architect and current postdoctoral researcher at the graduate program in urban and regional planning at Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul under the supervision of Professor Luciana Miron.
Josana, could you put in the mode of presentation? It's not in the mode.
So we can see the slides better.
Is it okay now?
No, still not in presentation mode, no. You just press on that one should work.
I did, but it's not working. I don't know why. I can try to save in PDF.
No, don't worry. Just if you just increase the size of the slide, maybe, so you can read.
Josana, I think if you put in presentation mode before and after that, share the screen, it will work.
Yes, I tried that. Thank you, Josie.
You shouldn't need to do that though, but let's try.
It's not working, so I'm going to save in PDF very quick.
No, don't worry, Josana. Just open it up. Just make it as big as possible on PowerPoint and it should be fine, yeah.
Is that working now?
No, we're not sharing. Yeah, now we can see your, yeah. Shall I try again? There we go. Now it works.
Oh, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
So my thesis is entitled Urban Quality of Life, Multidimensional Evaluation in Porto Alegre, Brazil. But I'm going to focus on the time that I spent in Huddersfield in 2019 when I did my systematic literature review under the supervision of Patricia and Professor Ione Del Santi. So we are here based in the south of Brazil, Porto Alegre. You are very welcome here. I finished my PhD in 2021 and spent some time in the PhD sandwich from November 2018 to May 2019 in Huddersfield. It was a great time. I miss you as well. And you can find my thesis in this link. It is written in English if you are interested. And the main goal of my study was to evaluate the urban quality of life in the context of the renovation of buildings for social housing. So we have a few examples in our city, in Porto Alegre, in the central area of Porto Alegre. And the main result of my thesis was this multidimensional method to evaluate the urban quality of life. So I considered those 4 case studies in the central area of Porto Alegre, which were buildings renovated or in the process of renovation for social housing. The systematic literature review was really important in the first stage of my research because it helped me to understand the concept of the quality of life, which is very complex, and to propose the first version of my method. So the systematic literature review question was, how can the quality of life be assessed through urban indicators? I have used 3 databases, ProQuest, Scopus, and Web of Science. And after the selection, the evaluation, I organized these 26 studies, which I study deeply, and I organized them, assessed them by quality and relevance of these studies. Then I could highlight 10 specific categories of analysis that contribute to the discussion. Sorry, guys, there is a construction in my building, so maybe you hear some noise. Sorry about that. But I was searching on these studies when they proposed or reviewed the quality of life concept. When they use secondary and or primary data, objective and subjective indicators or both, if they are working with the regional scale unit or the local scale, and if they propose or review the quality of life indicators. Then the main discussion of my thesis was around the urban quality of life concept. It was really important to me to have this clarified, highlighted the existing models or methods to assess the urban quality of life, and the main urban quality of life indicators that those studies were proposing. So I have organized this data in a lot of tables to better understand, and I came to this concept. The urban quality of life is multidimensional and includes material, non-material, individual, and collective living conditions. The objective dimension of these living conditions, which includes the indicators based on universal metrics that people can understand, and the subjective dimension of these living conditions, that is the people's satisfaction, the people's perception of these living conditions. So these dimensions have different methodologies for evaluating. certain living conditions, and they are considered equally relevant when you have to evaluate the quality of life. Then I organized these models and methods that were used by these studies and the indicators. I also considered some standards about quality of life. And in the end, I have proposed this conceptual framework, which includes the 7 dimensions of living conditions, which are general themes, the urban services, economy, culture and recreation, urban mobility, conviviality, security, environmental comfort. So those dimensions should be assessed, evaluated, objectively and subjectively to understand this whole world of the quality of life. Then the 7 quality of life dimensions, from those dimensions I have proposed, and from the literature review, of course, I have proposed 6 indicators, each themes, each dimension, that you can see here. And in the end, I have 42 urban quality of life indicators proposed in this study. This can guide policymakers, decision makers who work on urban planning issues, researchers, and students. So you can find the results of the literature review in this paper in the Urban Science, which is called Urban Quality of Life, a systematic literature review. Then I'm finishing. So this is the method that I have proposed in the end, and you can see it has 3 main stages: the evaluation of the preparation for the evaluation. So you have to define the location, the population, the multidimensional urban evaluation, that you have to assess the objective and subjective quality of life and then compare them. And in the end, promote a discussion of the results among those involved in the process to generate learning and provide feedback to the method, to the quality of life assessment. So thank you very much. Obrigada. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Josana. Thank you, Josana. Andrea, are you gonna present? Thank you.
Can you guys see my screen?
Perfectly well, thank you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here. My name is Andriele. I'm a doctoral student at the moment, and the title of my thesis research project is a place-based approach to neighborhood sustainability assessment in low-income communities in Brazil. So just to give you a background, I was in the UK last year. I had a visiting period from March to September in the University of Huddersfield. Before visiting the University of Huddersfield, the title of my research project was COVID-19 Pandemic, Urban Quality of Life in Neighborhoods of Porto Alegre, Brazil. So when I got there to the University of Huddersfield, Professor Patricia put me in contact with researchers from South Africa and other people from her network. And I started working on research on sustainability in low-income neighborhoods in South Africa. So on this project, Professor Patricia and I decided to have, and Professor Luciana, of course, we decided to have to conduct a Delphi study in the UK and in Brazil. So last year when I was in the UK, I was working on that Delphi study, and now I'm working on the Delphi here in Brazil. And the idea was to have a comparison study between South Africa, the UK, and Brazil on indicators to assess sustainability in low-income communities. So this gave my research project a whole new direction. Not whole new, but I had some common ground. Before I was talking about the concept of quality of life and sustainability, neighborhood scale, indicators, and low income. And from my visiting period in the UK, I started working specifically with the sustainability conceptualization with place-based approach, and I decided to focus the thesis on a methodology for selecting, weighting, and adjusting sustainability indicators. So my research problem for this for the thesis starts by understanding that measuring sustainability is very important for evaluating urban intervention and policy, as Professor Luciana already mentioned. However, there is no consensus on how to assess sustainability in different sectors. Everybody has a different idea, because what it means to be sustainable changes in different spatial and temporal contexts. So this is a very hard piece of concept to work with. We have conventional assessment tools, but they have a lot of limitations. They focus heavily on the certification aspect of new developments, and they frequently have imbalances between sustainability dimensions. So they're also very market oriented. They focus mainly on high income populations, and sometimes they may not promote real changes towards sustainability. So these tools, these conventional tools, they also adopt what it's called a top-down approach. That means that indicators to assess neighborhood sustainability are selected by professionals, and there's little participation of other community stakeholders. And also the process of this selection and understanding the assessment is not very transparent. So we don't actually know how the assessment was created. So in my thesis research problem, we believe that it's necessary to balance top-down and bottom-up approaches so that the assessment of sustainability will reflect local realities. And we think that a place-based approach and community engagement are promising and necessary ways of doing so. The literature on sustainability indicator systems is very abundant, especially in developed countries. However, we see that there's a lack of research and also of specific tools for assessing neighborhood sustainability in the Brazilian context, also in other developing countries, and especially in low-income communities. Sorry. So we think that a more comprehensive research and more balanced approaches to measuring urban sustainability that take into account the specificities of developing countries such as Brazil are needed at this point. So the main research question I have in my thesis is how to improve the process of assessing sustainability in neighborhoods of low-income communities in Brazil. And to achieve that goal, to answer that question, we have a main goal, which is to develop a balanced neighborhood sustainability assessment methodology for selecting, adjusting, and weighting sustainability indicators using a place-based approach. So just to give you an overview, I have mainly 4 research questions and some contributions. I'm using design science research to develop the methodology, which is a type of construct research method. The first question is, what is neighborhood in the context of low-income communities here in Brazil? And from that question, the contributions for the study would be to have a specific conceptualization of temporal and spatial context of neighborhood sustainability for low-income communities here in Brazil. And also, I'm going to work with, I'm actually working already with a generic list of indicators to operationalize the methodology. The second question is, what's the difference between the indicators considered to assess sustainability of neighborhoods in Brazil and other countries? This is related to the Delphi study I started in the UK and I'm doing here in Brazil. So the contribution would be a comparative analysis of the selection of indicators in a top-down approach between South Africa, United Kingdom, and Brazil. And finally, I have two larger questions, which are how to balance top-down and bottom-up approaches in the selection, adjustment, and weighting of indicators. And the second one is, how can a place-based approach contribute to improving this process of selecting, adjusting, and weighting sustainability indicators in a more balanced and transparent way? So the contributions expected here is the evidence from a case study using a place-based approach and trying this methodology. And also a balanced approach to the selection, adjustment, and weighting of indicators regarding sustainability dimensions and also the participatory process of developing sustainability indicators. So these are the contributions I hope to achieve. I'm due to finish the PhD in June of 2025. So all of these questions are in course at this moment. I'm working on a lot of this. So thank you. If you have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the three of you for the excellent presentations. Yeah, it's really appreciated. So we don't have a lot of time left, but there is some time still for a couple of questions, if there are any from the audience. So would anyone like to ask any questions? Maybe Patrick?
I have a question.
Please, Luciana.
Thank you, girls, for your presentation, for sharing your research. I have a question related, I think, to methodology, to Andriele and Josana, because it seems like you chose some indicators related to sustainability in case of Andre and related to urban quality of life in Josana's research. And I think I am doing something similar in my research, aiming to build some kind of framework of criteria. I'm working on prioritization criteria for in urban and housing improvements in Brazil. Something is still defining, I think. But I would like to ask, how did you select these indicators that are adequate to realities, I think, of the Brazilian cities? How did you do this kind of selection of these criteria to use in your research?
Thank you, Josie. It's a really important and hard question to answer, because that was the reason I started the literature review, because I need to know what the studies were suggesting and using. And then I had a lot of information, but at some point it kind of starts to go through a specific path. You could identify some that are repeating in all these studies. And then I came to Brazilian reality and, read a lot. And finally, we have to choose the main indicators that are important and to this specific reality, of course. But actually, I have this. I thought it was important to the generalization of the research. So it was important to read those international works and then the Brazilian works to, choose those indicators. And in the end, you can also realize that it was not perfect. So it was my contribution, but the other studies, of course, can criticize that.
If I can complement, for Josana was a challenge, identify the available secondary data to the analysis for these indicators, as well as the data collection, the primary data collection with dwellers, because was the pandemic time.
This is a very interesting question because one of the main things I decided to do in my research was actually to differentiate myself from Josana and David's work, because they were working with indicators that are developed by sometimes developed countries, and they are very different from the necessities and indicators we should use for low-income communities in Brazil. So I came up with a criteria for selecting the studies, like Josana did possibly, but I decided to only use sets of indicators which were developed for developing countries and low-income communities. So this is something that is different in my paper in my research from the others. So this, I think, would be a very interesting point of my research, because it's specific to the context of developing countries and low-income communities.
Thank you very much. Probably I will message you later to talk about that.
I think we should, yeah.
Great.
Okay. Any further quick questions for our speakers? No, right. I was going to ask a question, but I think we'll have to have a separate meeting to discuss. I'm sure we will have an opportunity to sit down and talk. So let me just thank you once more for being here, for sharing, taking the time, to come and share your research experiences with us all. And hopefully we'll meet you soon. And Luciana, and Josana and Andriele, we need to try and organize another visit of you here to the UK. I'm sure we should do that soon.